Welcome, Fantasy Degenerates. It's week 11, and we have Mr. Tupac Shakur here with our whiteboard. Robbie and I, we've broken down the next 3 weeks of the playoffs and kind of predicted who the wins and losses and who's, like I said, who's going to make the playoffs. So let's go ahead and get started with number 12, Brent Berry.
Brent Berry, his current record's 3-7. There's no light at the end of this tunnel. No. Mike James fractured his ankle last weekend. Doesn't help his running back core. He loses out and finishes at a 3-10 record.
Brent, I have you at 4-9, and I do have you winning this week against Mr. Tupac Shakur here, and I have you winning by 0.1 just for redemption against Nick. And I think it's well deserved. So Brent, you're not making the playoffs. So let's move on to number 11, Carrie.
Carrie, his current record, same as Brent, 3-7, but I think she takes a little different path, only by a little bit.
Yeah.
I have her going 1-2 the rest of the way, and at 4-9 for her inaugural season. Can't be too mad about it. You know, things didn't go her way, but hey, you beat Strack, didn't you?
Yeah, and I agree. In a good draft, Ray Rice didn't work out for you. I do have you your only win this week, or not this week, but the rest of the season is against week 12 against Nick, and finishing out at 4-9. So, with that being said, let's move on to number 10. Is Kyle.
Kyle? I thought his name was Lisa Left Eye Lopez. Because, buddy, that's a TLC reference. If you don't know, you're the red light special. For some reason, I have you winning out the rest of your games, finishing at a record of 7-6. Your name's circled on here. That means you're in the playoffs, buddy. So, do what you want with that.
And the only difference is I don't have you making the playoffs, and the reason why is because you are going to lose against me next week. I do think you have some key players that are out next week that's not going to help you. So I do have you at 6-7. So with that being said, let's move on to Lek, who we have at number 9 at this point.
John, yeah, his current record is at 4-6. But, if you look up here, his name's not circled, but we agree he is the biggest dark horse that there is up here.
Absolutely.
If there's going to be somebody that makes the poll that we haven't predicted, it's going to be John. He's doing a hell of a job trying. He just added a great tight end in Jordan Cameron today in a trade with me. I have you outside the playoffs looking in. Waylon has you outside, but I think you have the best chance.
Yeah, I think you lose, not lose, but win the next two, especially with the big three, and then losing in the last week against Matt, finishing at 6-7. But who knows? Like I said, but I do think that you're in the outside looking in. That being said, let's move on to Mr. Bukaki, Matt Brandenburg at 5-5 right now. Matt, I did have you circled at earlier on today as a win against me. I might be kind of hesitant on that at this point. Colts do look like they're kind of giving a little bit of pushback, putting up some points. So let's see. But at this point, I see at 8-5 making the playoffs.
And I can't look past the Aaron Rodgers injury. I think he lived and died with Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson connection. Yep. I think no Aaron Rodgers means 90% of Jordy Nelson is gone. Mm-hmm. I think you're done. I think you may get one win the rest of the year, and unfortunately, you are going to be 6-7.
And if you do make it in the playoffs, they're not saying at best case scenario Rodgers doesn't get back to week 13. So if you do get in, I don't think there's going to be much hope for even winning the championship. So. Let's move on to Mr. Mark Davey, who we have at number 7. Current record is at 5-5. Mark, I do have you losing the next two and then winning the last week against Robbie. The good news is for you that Trent Richardson is kind of pushing a sex tape through, so that'll give you some entertainment on those lonely nights, man.
That's a great segue, because my fact of the week is that Trent Richardson averages more girls per sex tape than yards per carry, and that's a fact. But, Davey, I don't know why. I just haven't been high on your team all year. I think you lose out. You end at 5-8, unfortunately. Your season ends here.
Yeah, like I said, I have you 6-7. So let's move on to Strack. Strack, you started out at 4-0 the season and was such a high. And Robbie and I predicted at week 5, from that point on, that you would go on a losing skid. The only win that you've had was when you have scored 68 points, and that was against Matt. You should be at close to a 5-game skid at this point. That skid is going to continue, and I have you losing out the rest of the season, which would put you at an 8-game skid since then, and get you out of that Jesus mode that you were in week 4.
Well, after week 4, we had W.D. Stradamus come in here and predict the future, and you've gone 1-5. So I'd say that's a pretty accurate call. I got you winning 1 out of the next 3. So, you're in it at 6-7, and as we know, the last 3 years, 6-7 does not make the playoffs.
No. So let's move on to what we would call the real contenders, and start out by Mr. Tupac Shakur at the number. Well, we have him at number 5, but I see him at the number 6 seed, and finishing out at 7-6 is Todd. I do see him losing the next 2 weeks against Brent and John, and then getting a win at the last week against Kerry, but you will be in there at the 6 seed.
Here's the thing about Todd, though. His remaining schedule is a combined 10-20. Mm-hmm. He's got the easiest strength of schedule remaining. So I think he gets 2 out of the 3 there and ends in that 8-5 bubble that a lot of people are going to end up in.
Yeah, I don't think that those records, though, kind of reflect the teams that the next that his competition really has at this point. So I do think he'll run into a buzzsaw the next couple of weeks. So next we have Robbie, who I do think that is pretty much a real lock at that 4 seed. And I said to him earlier, I do think that he could have pushed for that 3 or 2 seed, possibly if Arian Foster wouldn't have got hurt. However, that did occur. So I just see him losing in week 13 against Mark. Other than that, I think you're strong at number 4.
Yeah, we lost Foster for the year, but with our team, it's next man up. I got Andre Brown off of waivers and Zach Stacy off waivers, so the holes are being filled at this point. I think
Bukake.
I think I'm in. I mean, even 1 out of the next 3, I think, is plausible. So there's really not much to be said here. I think I'm that 5. I'm on the bubble, but definitely in.
Yeah. And moving on, I put myself at that 3 seed. Your commissioners are 3 and 4, whether you like it or not. That is happening. And Matt, I'm going to go ahead and put myself at a loss this week than winning out against Kyle and Kevin, which that week 13 is going to be a huge matchup between Kevin and I, which I think is going to really kind of predict kind of playoff positions there. I do see myself finishing 8-5.
Yeah, Waylon, I see you finishing 8-5 as well, which kind of brings up a good point that you said about you and Kevin on that 2. Well, it doesn't really bring up a good point about you and Kevin, because here's the deal. Is that you are in the same division as Nick.
Yeah.
And Kevin's in the separate division.
That's
you
true.
may end up better than Kevin, but he's going to get the bye due to being the number 1 seed in his division. So you're kind of screwed either way. You're looking at the 3 seed no matter if you are better than Kevin or not.
Yeah. Which I'll accept. That'll be my first season making the playoffs. Yeah, if I don't make the playoffs, then I will be in fantasy depression, hands down.
I mean, you're on a 3 season skid of not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
You're due, right?
Yeah, the gambling Jews will come through. So let's move on to who we think that will get probably at this point get the buys, and Kevin is the first person. I do see Kevin winning the next 2 matches against Strack and Mark, and then like I said, losing against me in 13. In week 13 and finishing at 8-5. Kevin, you've been pretty consistent all season. You and your boy Cam. So
I agree. I mean, I have him getting the next 2 wins, and I also having him lose to you in week 13, just because he beat you earlier in the season, and it's your turn for a little lick back at him, and then maybe the 3rd tiebreaker rubber match in the playoffs this year. We'll see how it plays out.
And week 13 will be a big match. Then we move on to Mr. Nick Allen. Nick, I'm still angry. I'm still angry about my loss a couple of weeks ago, and then you even just pissed me off more about taking down my boy Brent Barry with that point win, and then get Mr. Todd here, several weeks back with another point win, a total of .8. which would have made you at that point 4-6. 4-6 would put you on that Kyle Bauman level, and just for that, I see the Lex taking you down for the next 2 weeks, and then getting a win against Strack because Strack can't beat anybody, and finishing at 8-5.
I mean, that's the thing that's crazy about fantasy, and I'm glad we went to the decimal point system.
Yeah, I do.
But the thing is, from the number 1 seed to the number 9 seed, 1 point secured the fate of Nick.
Yeah.
Less than 1 point.
Yeah.
He could have been 4-6. He's 7-3. So hey, he might as well celebrate these 7-3. I'm probably getting the bye, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Pop that sham. You know what I mean? But the rest of the way, he's probably getting 2 out of the next 3 wins. I see him finishing with the best record regardless and getting a bye.
And I think that whole Nick scenario just basically sums up our league at this point of just being a total log jam. I mean, it's just really wide open at this point. So, with that being said, thank you, Mr. Tupac Shakur, for holding the sign for us tonight. And just remember, if you're winning, it's fantasy. If you're losing, it's just fake.
And next week, in Week 12, we'll probably break down some of the potential players for keepers for 2014. And then Week 13 is the big playoff week. Huge celebration. You're really looking at the teams that are it. And we'll break that down.
And don't forget, next Wednesday is the trade deadline. So go ahead and.
So it's time to make moves now or Tuesday when you know that you lost or won this weekend.
All right. Good luck to you.
See you next week.